Hey there, kiddos, and welcome back to the channel. I'm Uncle Frank. I mean that you are having a great day, and in today's video, I'm going to be sitting back in my very, very squeaky chair, relaxing and having a little conversation with all of you guys about bulk. I just really felt the need to crack my fingers there. Yeah, we're talking about bulk today. Delicious, nutritious, sweet, and tasty bulk. My favorite way to engage with cardboard crack. You see, from time to time, especially more recently, as more and more people are aware of my channel and reach out to me on Discord or Gmail or whatever, I've been getting a lot of questions about bulk, but one that does pop up more often than a lot of the rest is some variation of, hey, Uncle Frank, I sell a lot of bulk cards online, TCG Player, eBay, it's Card Market, etc. But lately I've noticed that after starting, my bulk sales have dwindled. I'm getting less sales or I'm getting fewer cards per order. What am I doing wrong? What can I do to change this? And obviously I get these questions from newer people who have just started selling. And, when I do receive these questions, I like to, have a little conversation with these folks, ask a few questions of my own. And the two questions that come up the most often are, when was the last time you added bulk to your inventory? And how many sets do you have in your inventory, regardless of what the bulk count for those sets is? And you'd be surprised at how often people respond with, I added bulk once, and I have 1 to 2 sets worth of bulk in the inventory. That's happened more than once in the last few weeks alone. And so to those people, I always have a pretty similar answer. And the answer is, you should be adding more bulk to your inventory to facilitate the sales of more bulk. I know, shocking, right? That's the craziest thing ever. Adding product to inventory sells inventory. But yeah, a lot of people have gotten it, or at least have the impression that bulk is something that you can just slap on your inventory all at once in one go. Forget about it. And it'll just sell itself over time, and you don't have to worry about it. They think of it as some kind of passive income, when it really isn't. Bulk is a very involved process, and when it comes to bulk, you can't really treat bulk cards the same way as a lot of sealed or singles from their respective card games. You see, when it comes to singles, for instance, if you have a nice cash basket of good singles cards from Magic the Gathering or Pokemon or Yu-Gi-Oh! The best way to get all of those out the door, the best way to sell those all fast is to be a reliable seller who has a good competitive price tag attached to all of those cards. At or slightly below market is always decent if you're newer. At or slightly above market is perfectly fine if you're an established guy with a lot of trust behind him, But for bulk, it's a bit different. You see, if your inventory is full of staples, dual lands, fetch lands, Moxin, and those swords. What are Magic the Gathering staples these days? I don't actually know. Haven't looked at Modern in like a year. If your inventory is full of staples, obviously those staples will sell as long as your prices are good enough. However, when it comes to bulk, your prices probably are already as good as they're going to get. I've said this before on the channel, and I'll say it a bazillion times. There really is a floor to the price of bulk you can really afford to sell at. And that floor is about 15 to 20 cents. Depends on the game, depends on a bunch of factors, what your shipping cost is, and all that jazz. But at about 15 to 20 cents, that is when you're making just a few pennies per card, per order. Yes, I know that there are people on TCG Players selling their cards for literally a penny. Do not do that. I cannot stress that enough. Don't do that. So when it comes to getting back on track, when it comes to bulk, you're already offering the best possible deal at bulk prices, 15 to 20 cents. That's as good a deal as you're going to offer. So what else can you do to entice people to your store to buy your bulk? Well, that's the thing. you have to entice them the only other way you can. And when it comes to buying cards on the market, there's two things people are looking for. They're looking for the best possible deal, which you've already covered. You're selling bulk. You already have the best possible deal for that stuff. And they're looking to get all of their shopping done with as few clicks as possible. They are looking to go through as few stores as possible, pay as low a shipping charge as possible. They're looking to get everything done in one go, which is why it's always a boon for you to have as wide a variety available on your store as possible. I cannot stress that enough. You can't really afford to sit on one card that has 200 copies, or just a bunch of bulk from the most recent sets, or anything narrow-minded like that. Because the most recent sets, if you have the bulk from them, they will sell for a bit. You know, people are always looking for bulk from the newest set. Obviously. Especially Pokemon and Yu-Gi-Oh! Magic, not so much. And if you have 200 copies of a card, and it's a decently desired card, like Clown Crew Fiends was one from Blazing Dominion. That one was a pretty hot seller. If it's a decently popular card and you have a zillion copies of it, 30 quintillion copies, it might sell a bit, However, in my experience, having a wide depth of availability across multiple sets for multiple games, and having 1 to 2 copies of 200 cards across various sets and various games is a much better net to cast than one thick stack of one small subset of cards from one set from one game. Because when someone's going online, and there's a bunch of people, there's hundreds of people on the TCG markets every day, they're all looking for a handful of cards. They're all looking for a handful of specific cards. And not all of them are looking for that one specific card that you're thinking of throwing a bunch of bulk on, or that one specific set that you're thinking of throwing a bunch of bulk on. They're looking for, usually cards for a collection or a deck or an archetype or a theme or whatever. And again, like I said, they're looking to get as much of their shopping done in one place as possible. So having that variety, that wide variety, and not just the stuff you're interested in, but the stuff that your customers might be interested in, that's the key to success. Too many people, I find, too many people add their bulk once, either when they start their TCG account or when they just hit level 4 status. They'll add one giant pile of bulk at once. Or they'll add one small-ish, medium-ish pile of bulk, 800 cards, whatever, whenever a new set drops. And then they'll just forget about it. But that's not really how you keep the churning and burning going with bulk. Yeah, the new stuff is likely to sell because it's the new hotness, right? But you need to constantly be updating your bulk inventory. Constantly. I am always adding new stuff to the bulk inventory. Regardless kind of even of how much bulk I have. I know I like to talk about how much I love bulk, and I love having dozens of copies of cards. I made some jokes on social media about having like 300 copies of some terrible commons from Yu-Gi-Oh! And such. But it's definitely true that you want a huge variety of cards so you can cast a wide net over the market itself to catch the interest of as many potential buyers as possible. Because if somebody sees that you have Naruto Uzumaki, this is actually in decent condition. If someone sees that you have Naruto Uzumaki, they might buy that card. They might be looking for that specific card from you. They're more likely, if they want Naruto Uzumaki and Jiraiya, and if they're looking for 3 cards, 2 from Naruto and 1 from Flesh and Blood, that's Dive Through Data Blue. No one wants Dive Through Data Blue. Let's just say that they do. If they're looking for Dive Through Data Blue for some reason, and also 2 Naruto cards, and you happen to have them, boom, you've got yourself a customer, because that's variety in the market, and that's always good. And like I said, too many people just kind of slap it all on at once and treat it like it's passive income, when it's really not. Bulk is an involved process of constantly sorting stuff, constantly adding stuff to the inventory, and of course constantly sending stuff out. Too many people treat bulk like it's passive income when it's probably the most involved process of it. It means high-end singles and staples are probably, I don't want to call it easier, because obviously sourcing, it's a hassle, pricing and all this jazz. There's no easy win button in the TCG market. No morally correct easy button, I should say. And then, of course, one last thing I want to add. Don't turn up your nose at just adding a few copies of a card from a given set to your inventory. You know, just a handful of copies in general from any set, obviously. If all you have on hand is a handful of random bulk cards spread out from a bunch of sets, obviously having a bunch of bulk from one set and slapping that entire set on a TCG player all at once is super convenient, really nice, especially if you have access to all of their tools. But don't shy away from adding cards to the inventory just because you have 3 copies of a card from some set that no one's thought about in 10 years. You know, an example I probably should have talked about months ago when it first happened, but not too long ago I got a handful of cards, like a really small stack of cards from Starter Deck Joey and Starter Deck Pegasus, some of the oldest Yu-Gi-Oh decks out there. And I threw those bad boys up on the TCG player account immediately because I knew, yeah, I've got like 2 copies of a card. I think 2 copies like Mindless Radiant, 7 Tools of the Bandit, stuff like that. You know, cards from those old decks. Nothing, not the Red Eyes, not the Relinquished, not the big cards. They weren't first edition. They were all unlimited. But I threw it on anyway because those were old sets that still had fans. And like I said, the more variety, especially with the older stuff, the more variety you have, the more likely it is that you'll find someone who's interested in buying that thing. And while they're going through your inventory, they might find some other stuff they're looking for, especially if you have that stuff listed. So at the end of the day, if you've got a bunch of stuff sitting around in your closet, a bunch of bulk that you're not looking at, consider looking at that bulk because it's sitting around unsold because you're not listing it. You should always be listing more bulk. Asterisk, if you really want to engage with bulk as a major way of engaging with the online TCG business. Obviously, you can ignore this entire video if you have no real interest in bulk itself. Anything else I forgot to mention? Asterisk, obviously you can sell cards at a penny if you are selling them in a giant brick rather than one at a time. And obviously there are card games that doesn't matter how much bulk you have, people are probably not super interested in it. I can't think of a good example because most things here sell at some point. All right. That's my video for today, kiddos. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, share, subscribe. Leave a comment down below if you agree with me or disagree with me. I'm always curious to see, and that helps the algorithm, which helps me out. Anyway, check out the Patreon, the Discord, and the TCG player link. That's all I got for you kiddos today. Ciao. Boop.